Hospitals and TV. This is a Power Breakfast, the news review with me, Fred Ndimuli. I'm here in studio with Professor Jacqueline Odwol, nominated MP, Ledama Olikina, Senator Narok County, Senator Kimani Wamatangi from Kiambu, and Caleb Kostani, MP for Soi constituency. Just before the break, we're talking about the confusion in law and the Kenyan proverb that reads that the law is very clear, but is it really? And that's a big debate this whole week with that withdrawal by NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga from the October 26th election. Now we do understand IEBC says he did not withdraw completely because apparently there is a Form 24A that he never filled. Yes, and that complicates it for you, Senator Olikina, because yes, if at all he did not meet, he did not follow that procedure to the letter as prescribed by the law, which is supposed to be very clear, then it's a problem, even for him. Even it changes the game even for him.
No, it doesn't. I tell you what, Fred, IEBC might think that we are stupid, but we are not. IEBC wanted us to sign that Form 24 so that they can declare Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta as president the next day. You know, you've got to look at the context of that form and when you're supposed to sign that form. If we had signed that form, the next day he would have been declared, because then he would have been the only candidate nominated. So the best thing to do is this: let us not take people in circles. IEBC has got to respect its own independence. If IEBC really cares about this country, they ought to organize fresh nominations. And I keep repeating this: the only reason why Raila Amolo Odinga and NASA pulled out of the 26th election is because IEBC did not fulfill any reducible minimums. In fact, Jubilee also have their own reducible minimums. There are issues that they are not happy with. And some of them, they decided, you know what, let us canvass them, let us take them and pass some illegal law for us to be able to make sure that everything that is done by IEBC favors us. So the problem we have in this country is this: that when you're in power, you tend to design laws that will benefit you, forgetting that tomorrow you will be on the other side. So I think for us to be legit, and I want to respond to what Senator Wamatangi had said earlier on in terms of the issue of the legitimacy. He actually said that we in NASA, being led by our principal, have been making this process illegitimate. It is not. We want people in Kenya, the 45 million people in Kenya, to feel like whatever political decision we're making is proper. You know, correct the mistakes that were identified by the Supreme Court. Don't come now and try to hide and say, no, we are not doing this. You are the ones who don't want to.
But Senator, when Raila Odinga made that announcement that he is withdrawing from the race, of course there were expectations, and they actually voiced some of those expectations, that now IEBC will be forced to call for fresh nominations, which would mean that now they set a fresh date for the presidential rerun. That does not seem to be happening now, because if at all now Raila Odinga, by failing to fill that Form 24A, is still on the ballot paper come 26th of October, it will be deemed that he has not withdrawn from the race, and because people will still get to vote for him.
I'll make this very clear to you again. By the time that Raila was withdrawing, there were only two candidates who were validly nominated, following the decision of the Supreme Court. If Raila would have signed the Form 24A, then by then it would have now meant that there's only one candidate nominated, and that one candidate would have been declared president. I want to go back to what my colleague Professor said: consistency. We have been very consistent in terms of our demands, in terms of wanting these changes to be made so that we can give Kenyans a proper elections. So because IEBC is saying that they do not have time, then it behooves us to give them time. So the best thing and the most logical thing to do is to say, fair enough, what we're going to do is we're going to use the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? You know, in this case, since in terms of what the decision of the High Court said, and of the Supreme Court said, we will step aside, organize fresh nominations, so that you have enough time, 90 days, to fix all the problem that you're saying you do not have time to do. Then, by then, invite other Kenyans, let us go out and seek for votes.
Senator
don't see
Matangi,
anything wrong with that.
Senator Matangi, how does it change the game for you, for Jubilee? Because even Jubilee did not anticipate that these other candidates would be included on the ballot. Probably also counting on the fact that if Raila Odinga withdraws, then Uhuru Kenyatta is declared president as the only other nominated candidate. Now, Akuru Aukot, Abdul Badida, and the rest of the candidates will be on the ballot paper. How does that complicate the game for you?
Let's first set the record straight, Fred, so that Kenyans will understand what we stand for, what we've been saying, and where we are going. And let's also be truthful, because, Fred, everybody knows that since the day when the Supreme Court pronounced itself on the issue of the last election, we are the only political party between the two that went to the ground, hit the ground, wore our red shirts for Jubilee again, and we went to campaign. I asked this question the other day. Since that day, when have you ever had the NASA candidate in any rally or meeting telling people, vote for me in this coming general election? When did you ever hear him? He never have gone to a rally to ask for votes. They never campaigned. We have been all over. We have been all over the country ourselves campaigning, and you know what we've been saying to our people on the 26th, and we have not been changing our script on that. We were consistent on the 26th. Come and vote for us. Vote for our candidate.
So the High Court ruling yesterday that
you see, for us, we were clear. Our mind was set. We were going for the election on the 26th. That's where we still are focused on. We don't want any shortcuts. We don't want any benefits from whatever NASA and their candidate do or they don't do. We are not looking upon them. We are talking to the people. You know, that question that he tried to address on legitimacy boils down to exactly what I said. The only way you can argue on legitimacy in this country on the position of an elected president or any elected leader is by going to the ballot. But Fred, are Kenyans listening this morning to some of the things that these good friends of ours are saying, and especially listening to Senator Olekina? In retrospect, imagine, my friend, that Kenyans remember yesterday, the day before, and the change these guys have had every day on every position they have held. Now hear what they're saying about IEBC. We want to give IEBC time. They can go and organize themselves. Fred, a minute. They can go and organize themselves. After 90 days, they come and give us a good election. A few days. When they were on the street, they were saying, we don't want IEBC. IEBC must go home. Everybody, Chiloba must go home. This one must. Now the story has changed. Now they are saying IEBC is good. These people are okay. We want IEBC now to arrange the election in 90 days. Now,
my question is based on this headline.
Let me first say this. Let me first continue.
Yes. The new twist in the poll boycott. Now, this is why Okiya Omtata has gone to court.
Yes.
Because of this anticipation that the commission would announce Uhuru Kenyatta as president-elect. That is why Okiya Omtata moved to court.
Yes.
Yes, that case is still there, and it adds a new twist to the National Super Alliance leader Raila Odinga's announcement that he will not participate in the repeat presidential election. There was an anticipation by Jubilee that if Raila Odinga withdraws, there's a possibility that IEBC will go out and declare Uhuru as president-elect and swear him in. Now that changes because there are other candidates on the ballot paper as well.
You see, Fred, I want to be very clear in this show this morning.
Clear as the law.
As clear as the law. You know, we have never at any one time anticipated, planned for, or even tried to get any undue advantage or shortcut towards a legitimate presidency in following. And remember the words of the president. He said, although he disagreed with the judgment, he will obey it, he will respect it. And that's what we went for. You see, what I wanted to say, and say this, Fred and every Kenyan, when you meet these gentlemen, because they have been on the streets of Nairobi and all over this country talking about irreducible minimums. Can you imagine an elected leader like Olekina, like my friend here, elected to go to the House of Parliament and are nominated and given that privilege to come and bring those irreducible minimums so that they can be reduced to legal status and given the force of law so that they can be useful. And instead of taking those irreducible minimums to Parliament, they take them to the streets. And so, you see, I'm saying this so that Kenyans can be able to see the dishonesty in all of this. That you would be told that you have the force of law now. You can go and talk about these irreducible minimums, turn them into law, debate with other legislators, say what you don't like in the laws about elections because you went to court protesting an election because it was not proper. You want proper laws to ensure that the next election is good. You are given the opportunity of all the election law and refuse to go to Parliament and go to the streets.
Have been keen on looking for loopholes within the law.
That is dishonest.
And taking advantage and exploiting loopholes within the law to actually either ensure there's no election or that President Uhuru Kenyatta is declared president-elect. That both sides are busy with their legal teams, with their teams of lawyers to try and look for any possible loophole. Yes? To ensure that something goes their way.
Thank you, Fred. I would not say that they're looking for loophole. I would really just remind all of us, and I'm glad that Senator Wamatangi is saying that all Kenyans are listening. They know that constitutional making is legal and is political. They know that the only thing that happened to Kenya that helped them move from oppression, that managed to allow that even that very mamamboga or simple person we were calling Wanjiko could have their voice heard. They also know that the very way in which governance was working in Kenya before 2010 was that despite the fact that we had an executive and then we had a legislature and we had judiciary that was supposed to be independent, that part of the problem was that the clause of the executive in the earlier days was always everywhere, including the legislature and the judiciary. So what I would like, as I answer that question, is to help Kenyans see that they themselves, looking at the only thing that we were all united on, the 2010 Constitution, they know, as we watch those who are coming now to seek office to lead Kenyans, those who supported this and those who did not. And I really would like to say, as I listened to this conversation today, that Kenya continues, as I'm talking, to suffer oppression. We have children dying of malaria. We have nurses that are perpetually out there on strike. Really nothing is working. There is corruption, including in IEBC. The very laws that we are coming up with in Parliament, if you were to look at the spirit, they are intimidation of the highest order. We are pushing the envelope of talking about tyranny of numbers. And I am feeling extremely sad that we would have a situation where, as we are talking in a country where we do know that what we need to do with elections is to ensure that elections do not deepen discrimination, corruption, ethnicity, that election do not become an instrument that keep us backwards. We, of course, are going to get on the table because politics really is a competition for those who are going to be in power. And when you get on the table, you're going to look at, as Senator Wamatangi was saying, how it is that you talk to the people and ask them their vote. And I want to assure you, Senator Wamatangi, that we have been voting. I will tell you indeed how our votes were really, in fact, even presidential campaigns.
But you said there will be no election.
Fred, there is no way in... I'm going to allow Senator Wamatangi. I know I am the only lady here, but there is no way he's going to interrupt me as I'm talking. I did not interrupt him.
You know I'm a gentleman. I was only reminding her that there will be no election.
We are now leaders. It's not a question of gentleman or me being a leader.
I was reminding you of
and
the
at
truth.
This particular point in time in Kenya, we are going to take charge of leadership. And I really would like to say that part of what is the problem is that we are allowing Jubilee to come to Kenya with propaganda. And we are allowing Jubilee to cover the real issues with a lot of issues, trying to figure out who is playing what game, who did what. Let us come back to the issues. Let us say that the only reason that the NASA presidential candidate, it has been explained very clearly by Senator Lekina, withdrew is because they are the ones who have consistently sought to interpret the law in the interest of the people. Article 1 of the Constitution talks about sovereignty being delegated to us on behalf of the people. So when you look at the manner in which even the legislation in Parliament has been placed, it is not in the interest of the people. It is indeed in the interest of making sure that the IEBC will now be fiddled. It is against Article 81.
And
so if you just allow me, Fred, it is against Article 81, which I would like to ask them to read again, that says we are looking for free and fair elections. We are looking for elections that will be perceived not to have been influenced in any way by any quarters. We are looking for elections where the IEBC chair can feel that he has authority instead of appearing before a parliamentary committee and then his big marching orders go, and the very bill that you are looking at is neutralizing his powers as chair and is saying that when he's not there and you wonder where he's going to go, especially after we saw Msando disappear some minutes before the elections. I really would like to say, no, that's why, and I think you can see.
And let's not talk about,
I'm going to allow the rest, but what I'm not going to allow, and this is why I've come to this level, what I'm not going to allow is a situation where we come on national television and we like to demonize and interpret on behalf of NASA what it is that they did, when we do know that the consistency of NASA has been to say if there are no reforms, there will be no elections. I would like to say what is NASA's ideas of the reforms. And please allow us as NASA
and I'll give you another opportunity. And now that you've brought about the issue of the amendments to the electoral laws in Parliament, there's a headline on page 13 of the Standard: controversial election law changes passed. The National Assembly has passed amendments that require a presidential candidate to be declared winner if their sole challenger withdraws from the race. Now, the National Assembly has passed amendments that require a presidential candidate to be declared winner if their sole challenger withdraws from the race. And this is the same thing that Bonokio Mtata was trying to remedy in the court of law. He filed a petition. Some of these amendments that you've now passed, which you are hoping that, of course, they are still going before the Senate, that you are hoping will remedy some of the things and make it easier for Jubilee, probably. And that is the anticipation I was talking about. That Jubilee wanted to use that, yes, hopefully, once Raila Odinga withdraws, then Uhuru Kenyatta is declared winner. Now, that appears to have been overtaken by events. When Senator Kimani Wamatangi here says that it is not a game changer what happened yesterday, don't you think that is not necessarily true?
I said earlier that the passage of these laws smoked Raila from where he was because he wanted to cause a constitutional crisis. By passing the law whereby when a candidate, the sole challenger, withdraws, really, how does that favor Jubilee? It is for elections in posterity.
Wasn't it in anticipation of a withdrawal from the race by Raila Odinga?
The first thing that we need to know, we are dealing with a dishonest person. We're dealing with a very dishonest government. And we are dealing with somebody who is trying to get power through the back door. We are passing these laws based on an election that we have now. And it's unfortunate that we are passing these laws and we have an election coming in the next 14, 15 days. 14 days, but actually. We will have another election in 2022, we will have another in 2032, and so 2027, and so on and so forth. We'll have elections for the next until the world comes to an end, until God comes. So we are, and we want to say that some of these laws are what have caused NASA to now run around and say, hey, these guys are actually. And I want to tell you this. I want to tell you this.
Running around
we had calls made to senior Jubilee officials by NASA saying, is that clause there? Have you removed that clause of withdrawal and all? And we were telling them, no, we are looking into it. But when they confirmed, hurriedly, they had come to Parliament with the intention of participating, but they all left and said we've been called for a press conference. That press conference of theirs was called within minutes. They were just being smoked out of Parliament, come for the press conference.
Let's allow
these are the facts. None of those, according to the law, what she has said, we have said, because the law as it currently is that Chebukati is the only returning officer, presidential returning officer. Supposing Chebukati has a sore throat and cannot declare and cannot speak, What happens when you have Olekina? When you have Olekina, do you sign language?
Yes.
We have just provided that.
Some of those clauses were
and you see, look at in the absence of the chairman. Not that when the chairman is present, anybody else can. If the chairman is present, then he's the one to declare. But in his absence, for any reason, for whatever reason that is absent, he is able to
let me
the declaration can be done.
Let him finish.
So what is wrong with that?
But
number two,
the question is,
have said this
the question is, and I want a clarification from what Bwana Matangi said, that Jubilee was not seeking any loophole. But Jubilee appears to have been anticipating a withdrawal from the race by Raila Odinga, and that's why they came up with that amendment.
That's where he was heading.
That's why you came up with that amendment.
When you don't campaign and the elections are getting
that's why you came up with that amendment. You are hoping that once he withdraws, then automatically President Uhuru Kenyatta is declared president.
Let me tell you something. We as Jubilee, we are ready for whatever eventuality. If the law provides that when Raila withdraws, Uhuru is sworn in, so be it. He won the elections anyway. He won the elections on the 8th of August. Yeah? If the law says we go for elections, we are ready. And as now we are ready, we are busy campaigning. The deputy president was yesterday in Kajiado. We have a team going to Nyandarua today. We'll be in Bungoma tomorrow. We'll be in Kakamega on Sunday. We are hitting
I put it to you that both both sides of the political divide were keen on looking for loopholes, were keen on amending the laws, were keen on changing anything and trying to fix things just to ensure that their own candidate is declared president or gets an advantage in this particular presidential rerun. That appears to have changed yesterday with the inclusion of all these other candidates.
That statement is not true. I can tell you this with a fact. I have always argued about the difference between a private legislation or a private bill and a public bill. What these amendments are, these are private bills that are meant to benefit a particular coalition. These are bills, these are amendments to the law that is meant to ensure that Raila Amolo Odinga, when he wins this election, he will never be declared president. And the reason why I say that is because the problems we have is that, number one, you look at all the amendments that Jubilee have brought on this law. One being reducing the powers of the chairperson. In my view, if really Jubilee cared about this country, the first thing they would have done is they would have said, let us go back and ensure that we have more lawyers in the commission, you know, than the way the commission is constituted at this particular time. I personally find that the way the commission is constituted right now is actually very bad, because we only have one lawyer and we have other people who are not lawyers. So I think what we could have done, even for the bare minimum, is to ensure that the deputy to Chebukati has the same qualifications as Chebukati, so that in the eventuality that Chebukati is sick, then the deputy will always be like equal to him. That's number one. Number two, when you look at the timing of these amendments, it came in just when these people, during this process whereby we're getting through a second election, you will see that it was only meant for Jubilee, because Jubilee did not have any other thing to bargain with. They brought in these changes so that they can say, gentlemen, we have now something that we can bargain with. You guys have your reducible minimums, we also have these amendments, and because we have these numbers, let us now talk. Number three, my good friend here has spoken about Jubilee being ready for whatever the case. In my view, if that is true, then what you ought to do is to give IEBC time to correct.
It is not our responsibility to give IEBC time. IEBC is a referee. We don't control the referee.
No, you seem to control the referee. Then it is actually very sad that whatever is happening in IEBC seems to be scripted by the Jubilee administration.
Wow.
So in my view, what I think ought to happen is this: Chebukati needs to go back and really try to understand the meaning of an independent institution. And he needs to remember that he is not answerable to Jubilee. He is answerable to 45 million Kenyans.
Okay.
You know?
The headline on page 6 of the Daily Nation reads, IEBC blunders are now bleeding the country dry. Litany of petitions on why the costs arising from state of uncertainty to cost taxpayer billions. Is the IEBC the